I made these films in 1976 and in 1985. They document the art of the Mosi people in central Burkina Faso. There are lots of different Mosi peoples. There are the ruling elite, who are descended from large groups of cavalrymen who rode north into the basin of the Volta rivers in about 1500 AD. There is also a spiritual class of Mosi people who are descended from the ancient inhabitants, farmers who had lived on the land for centuries before the invaders arrived from the south. It is the spiritual class that make and use masks to represent the spiritual beings that inhabit their world and watch over them and protect them from disease, starvation, accident, and other sorts of disasters. Because so many different peoples were conquered in 1500 by the invading horsemen, there is in fact a great deal of diversity among the Mosi people, and this diversity is mirrored by the diversity of their art styles. Each of these different people produced art, produced masks, in a different style. The masks that you see here are produced in the far eastern area of Mosi country, around the large communities of Bolsa and Zegedigan. This celebration is called by the Mosi Sigam Dam, or the ancestor beer. It is performed at the end of the dry season, just before the rains begin, and thanks the spirits for watching over the entire community. It honors all of the people in the village who have passed away during the preceding year. Nora and I were the guests of a Peace Corps volunteer named George Hutchinson. When George Hutchinson left the Peace Corps, he enrolled in graduate school and received a PhD in African literature. Until his recent retirement, he taught African literature at Indiana University. You can catch a glimpse of George just in the background to the left of the mask. The female masks are truly spectacular, in part because of the 4 round ears that represent the eyes, and because of the bright red pigment, which is actually made up of red seeds set in a thin layer of beeswax. While the male masks with red costumes are violent and unpredictable, the female masks with black costumes and 4 mirrors for eyes are far more congenial. The man in the brown robe with glasses is the village chief. Here you can see how violent and unpredictable the male masks can become. One of these masks threatened my wife Nora. She told him in fluent Moray to back off. He backed off. This procession on the evening of the first day included all of the masks who paraded towards the market in the village. Just behind the man with the black and white check blanket, you see my wife Nora and our friend, a Peace Corps volunteer named Donald Round. The man with the conical cap of millet stalks is one of the joking relatives. His mask of millet stalks is intended to imitate the conical shape of the red male masks. In the next video about the vertical plank masks that are used in Mosi country, I explain in detail who the joking relatives are. Listen carefully. The bird-like twittering sound that you hear is the voice of the masks, produced by blowing air over a reed that the performer holds between his teeth. On the final morning of the celebration, all of the masks appeared to perform together. Each of the masks greets the masked chief in the community. These tall, thin plank masks are made by the Mosi in the far northern part of Mosi country, not far from the frontier with modern-day Mali. They look very much like the tall, thin plank masks that are made by the modern Dogon who live to the northwest in the country of Mali. That is because the ancestors of these people and of the Dogon in modern Mali were the same people. When the horsemen from the south invaded, some of the ancient Dogon stayed around and were incorporated into a new Mosi society, while others fled to the northwest where they found safety in the cliffs of the Bandiagara escarpment. You should notice all of the women holding millet stalks. These are the joking relatives of the family of the deceased. The joking relatives are the in-laws. Joking relatives are an important institution among the Mosi and among quite a few other people in West Africa. Their role is to joke with the members of the family, to exchange insults as a means of providing comic relief and a certain amount of release of tension. All of the men of the family then walk 4 times around the house of the dead person in a counterclockwise direction. If the person who had passed away had been a woman, they would have done the circuit 4 times. The mask emerges from the home of the dead person, where it has spent the night. The masks divide up the jars of millet beer among their followers. If you look closely at the back of this mask, you will see that it has been repaired by binding a straight stick to it. The plank cracked during the performance, and the attendants repaired it by binding a stick in place. Late in the afternoon, the masks and all their attendants return to the village from the wilderness, where they have spent the afternoon sleeping and drinking millet beer and resting. In contrast to the southern Mosi or the eastern Mosi, the northern Mosi make very little effort to hide the fact that the mask is being worn by a human performer. One of the masks is taking a break. These films are from the Mosi in the far southwest, who belong to an initiation society called the Sukwaba, or in the plural, Sukumse. These are very conservative and secretive people who consistently refused to allow me to film or photograph. The result was that I did not get good video of the art of these people until 2006, when I was able to attend one of their celebrations in the town of Twegan. The Sukumse are still very numerous throughout southwestern Burkina Faso, and they are famous for the power of their initiation groups and the importance of their masks. I have visited several Bois villages on many occasions in the past 25 years. These films were made in the village of Dosi, which is about 4 kilometers south of the town of Boni, just south of the road between Ouagadougou and Bobo Dioulasso. These were very hospitable and helpful people. You see here the masks parade to introduce themselves and to welcome guests, including me, into the village. Graphic signs or symbols that represent the sacred laws that provide the rules for proper behavior are ubiquitous in Bois art. They appear most frequently carved into the surfaces of masks, where each person who sees the mask recognizes the signs and symbols and the rules that should govern his or her life. The great plank masks, which they call Nuantante, are large signboards or tablets of religious laws. A whole variety of supernatural creatures appear, including the hawk, the butterfly, the great serpent, the crocodiles, the bush buffalo, and the antelope. Each of these represents a spiritual being whom the ancestors encountered in the wilderness. Raising the hands above the heads like this is a symbol for congratulations among the Bois. It is the way they take a bow. When the rains first begin to fall in May, puddles form and butterflies flock around the pools of water. The arrival of the butterflies represents the beginning of the farming season. Each of the patterns on the masks represents an important idea. The black and white checkerboard represents the importance of lifelong learning. For the Bois people, the black rectangles represent wisdom that comes with old age. The white rectangles represent the ignorance of young people who are just starting on the path of learning. Perhaps the most unusual character is the leper, who for some reason is considered to be a supernatural character. In 1984, my family and I lived across the road from the Evo family in the Naniabon neighborhood in the village of Uri. They held a village purification celebration in which the masks appeared to drive malevolent forces away from the neighborhood. All of the masks carry the broken handles of short-handled hoes. These are the weapons that they use in the underworld or the spirit world to fight the forces of darkness. The mask called One Curved Horn begins to stagger and sway as it is possessed by the spirit that it represents. The elderly ladies behind it rise and leave the area because they are afraid that the mask will fall on them. Here you get a better view of the broken clubs that each of the masks carries in its hands. The mask is possessed by its spirit. It begins to stagger and sway and must be carried off with the help of its assistants. This bush buffalo has always been my favorite. I filmed this one in 1985 and then filmed the very same mask on several occasions between 2000 and 2016. The masked performer kicks dirt at members of the audience. This female spirit is particularly popular with the young women of the community because it provides protection for them during childbirth. Here you see one of the tall, narrow plank masks for which all of the Voltaic language-speaking peoples are famous. The masks called one curved horn are considered particularly dangerous and unpredictable. Women of all ages are allowed not only to see the masks, but also to perform alongside them. This is quite different than the traditions in other parts of West Africa. Women are included because they are members of the family that own the masks. The most distinctive characteristic of Bobo mask performance is the very athletic and almost violent spinning motion. Very often the mask actually leaves the performer's head. He holds on to the bottom portion of it with his hand, with a thick fiber cord that passes through holes down in the chin of the mask. As you can see from the video, the Bobo are very fond of bright colors. They use imported European enamel paints to paint their masks. You can see here how excited the members of the audience become during the performance. Here the mask comes right off the performer's head. This is the antelope mask, or nyanga. This young spectator is really very excited. I visited the Nuna village of Tisé 3 or 4 times in 1985, and then again in 2000 and 2006. In 1985, the villagers in Tisé invited the American ambassador and a number of other guests from the embassy to attend one of the mass performances. The villagers were so hospitable that the members of the embassy staff returned repeatedly to the village. Eventually, the U.S. Embassy invested a very large amount of money in the village of Tisé in building a new clinic, a new maternity, and a new school. The outcome was that the villagers were successful in trading culture for development. The result of this very pleasant outcome was that the villagers were very happy to see me again when I returned with Nora in 2000. The earthen structure you see in the background behind the audience is a very large blacksmith's forge. A very large bush buffalo puts on a spectacular performance. Throughout Burkina Faso and much of the rest of West Africa, the costumes worn with masks are made of processed hemp fiber. The sticks that the performers carry in their hands represent the forelegs, or front legs, of a four-legged animal. As always at these performances, my personal favorite character is the bush pig, or warthog, or in French, phacochère.